That was a great point.
Where do you see yourself voting as of today?
I see myself voting for Biden. I have similar sentiments as Aaron, that unless if they completely switch policy positions, then my vote would switch. But obviously, I don't see that happening. To their earlier point about like inequality within the United States and different policy changes, right now, to be able to get to the next income bracket, 1 in 28 Americans will be able to escape the cycle of poverty, essentially. In multiple European countries, it's 1 in 8, and that's not a coincidence. That's basically based on the fact that our early education system, the way that's currently handled, is based on basically the taxes that you pay around.
Well, where did that stat come from?
I think Center of Global Poverty. I'm not sure.
So just break that down to distill that for me. Are you saying it's easier to become a millionaire in Europe than it is in the United States?
No, not a millionaire. What it is easier to do, what they did, is that they looked at people who are in the lowest possible income bracket, people who are poor. And then they compared it to like, okay, their children, their next generation. Are they going to be in the same bracket? Are they going to be in the next middle class? Or are they going to become like super duper rich? And what they saw is that in 1 in 28 basically children, they were able to get to the next bracket in the United States. While in multiple European countries, I believe Finland, I think the UK, and Sweden, if I'm not wrong, it was like 1 in 8. So it's not that they became millionaires, it's just that they were able to escape from the lowest class to the next class.
But what's weird is you're saying conflicting things, because last week and what you talk about is welfare and things like that. That does not help you elevate. That keeps you there.
Does help you though. When
it does not. It does not. I think you're absolutely coming from a place from, again, sweet thoughts, but not actual reality. That's why I asked you, do you have friends? Do you understand? Like, have you interacted with people and that actually use this system? This is not something they're trying to get out of. They're trying to game it and gain more from it. I mean, I truly believe this. There is a small percentage. I believe when my family came here, they were on welfare for like a split second. The idea was to get out. Again, we're talking years and years ago. There's a totally different mindset. Now it is to get on it. It's how many kids can I have to have more money from it. It's how can I work the system? That's what they're doing. And then yes, I wish that their kids would grow up and say, hey, that's what mom did. I don't want that. I want to get out of it. That's what I would like to think. But I think that it perpetuates the cycle of let me depend on the government.
Well, I would also say, because you've several times referenced Finland and Sweden, and everyone always and Bernie always does this, they talk about the Nordic countries. So if you want to talk about very tiny, almost all white countries, if you want the United States to be more like that with a uniculture and a very obvious skin color, that's generally not what progressives want. But if that is what you want America to look like more, that would be an interesting position.
See if you can
to
find
hold.
out the population, Humberto, of the Scandinavian countries, Norway, Finland,
they're
Sweden.
absolutely tiny, but Sweden, by the way, Sweden let in, something about like 1 million Muslims, something like that. And now they have huge problems. I mean, try going to Malmo, Sweden, and seeing what it's like.
And I saw you do a reaction video to the Muslim woman in the UK.
Who was defending Britain.
Yeah. Break that down.
Well, it was really fascinating. I wanted to do something that wouldn't be the traditional thing that people would see. I can show you 1 million videos of, Muslim people wandering through London, screaming from the river to the sea and calling for genocide and all that. But then I found this video of a woman in traditional Muslim garb talking about how multiculturalism had failed there, that she didn't want the country to be more like the countries that most of these people had come from. And that if the more that they import these religious ideas and authoritarian ideas and ideas that are against women and gays and all of these other things, that they are going to actually destroy Britain and no one will know what Britain is. And I think it's only a matter of time, unfortunately. Britain seems to be heading that way no matter what. I mean, you can't have hundreds of thousands of people marching largely in calls for genocide in your streets until at some point they're going to cross a threshold and have way too much power. They already have the mayor of London, and I think the more conservative, he's not really conservative, the more conservative prime minister is about to go down. But at some point they'll just march to the palace and they'll be like, sorry, King, we're taking you out, Charles, and that'll be that.
So what you're saying is
but my point of showing this video was not everyone is like that, which is why you have to care about individuals and not about group identity.
That's what it was about.
But
I think what you're saying is like Trump was like, these shithole countries, if you're a normal country, if you're the UK, if you're the Canada, the Australia, democracies, that there's a potential if you take in all these people from these shithole countries that your country could potentially become a shithole.
America for 200 plus years, we did it so right that everyone came here and became part of America. That's largely why
Yes.
I live in Miami where it's all Cubans, and I love Cubans. I've never
Thank
met
you.
a group of people that I feel such like when I go to Calle Ocho, like I feel there is such a, like, because they understand. They're usually one generation off it, and at least the younger ones that I meet. But like I talk to 80-year-olds who like they so get it, right? And America, the promise of America was that you'd fold into America in
Yep.
that we are a melting pot. So you could bring your foods and your traditions and your music and your clothes, but that we would fold into the idea of freedom. That was the melting pot. That was very different than what Europe did, because Europe basically brought people in but didn't really have a melting pot. It didn't really sell an idea. America is an idea. Europe was just like, oh, we're England, you can come here, but Pakistanis will kind of live here and you people will live here and blah, blah, blah. And yeah, maybe we'll do some business now and again, but you're not going to all share in everything. America has done it right until I would say the last decade, where the progressives decided that your skin color and your religion and everything else is tantamount, is the most important thing in the hierarchy, and your individual thoughts are actually the least important thing, which again is why I put that video of that Muslim woman up, because I was like, oh, this flips that on its head.
Of course.
Before
And
you-
I want to
speaking
push
of,
back on the idea about the whole thing of like, oh, welfare doesn't actually help outcomes. When we look at the universal child tax credit and the results that it has like on childhood poverty, we see that it reduces it by half. We see that the long-term outcomes when it comes to like, let's say it's food stamps, is like $1 put in, $1 that actually like comes back to the economy because of kids who are able to like grow up healthy, less likely to engage in like behavior like stealing essentially. Have better, healthier like life outcomes. And then on top of that, I want to say that when it came to the study that I referred to, there was one factor that they changed that made the number more like 1 to 8 in the United States, and that was basically helping families, assisting families with government assistance to move into better areas and better zip codes, essentially.
You mean in Europe?
No, in Europe it was 1 to 8, but in the United States, what they basically did is that they were like, okay, let's see if we can change this number or what factors that we can do, and if that will like affect long-term outcomes. And one of those things was, yes, assisting families to live in better neighborhoods. So
What does a neighbor? That's so interesting. What does that imply when you're saying you move to a better neighborhood? What do you mean by better? Why would they not do okay there? If they're, so innately good and they're going to do good with this, what would change about their environment? I mean, I want to understand what you mean by a better neighborhood.
So by better neighborhoods, we're talking about neighborhoods that were considered like economic hotspots. So neighborhoods that were basically looking like at better growth when it came to general jobs around the area, more businesses, which I'm pro of as well. Basically, what would end up happening is that you move the parents to these areas. The children would essentially go to a better school, more or less, and the parents would also have more economic opportunity, and so would the children as they're growing up there. So basically, if you want to improve childhood poverty or outcomes in the future, yeah, you can say like, oh, welfare to a certain extent, but also welfare that focuses on bringing these people to better environments where they can then grow and thrive. And that's what, as a progressive, I am for. I'm for giving people those opportunities so they can raise themselves up, not just to be dependent.